Mercedes took the team.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. It is Monday, May 6th, 1:40 here on the West Coast. That means it's 4:40 on the East Coast by Bennett. Bennett, how we doing today?
We're doing good, my friend. How are you doing?
Doing good. How's the weather out there? Did it turn yet?
It's a little gloomy,
Yeah?
as in Cali.
Oh, 75 and sunny the next week.
All right.
Like, the only time I'm seeing rain is in the shower. I'm trying to come back east for one of these next playoff games, maybe next week or so, but we'll see. We got a very interesting market on our hands. We got a bid up last week, just when everyone's counting this market out. We kind of pivot off lows last week. We had a Fed meeting where the Fed pretty much didn't say anything changed. Jerome Powell said he's going to be data dependent still, but he left a little nugget in there about the asset, the runoff, the balance sheet runoff of the Fed. So they have been buying mortgage-backed securities, and what that effectively does is keeps interest rates high. It's a form of quantitative tightening. So they said they're going to slow the pace of the QT. It's not effectively QE, but you can see how it's in the right steps, taking the steps in the right direction. Upon that news, 10 years sold off, rates sold off, and we got the market bid up again. NASDAQ's running. So we'll go through the charts a little bit and explain what I mean, but we got a decent backdrop, and we might make another run towards highs. So let me share my screen here for a sec. All right, we got the SPY here. We got last week's very choppy week. We bounced, made a higher low here in the indices off this low, bounce into resistance here, come back, make a third potentially higher low, and then bounce, and then we come to the 50-day resistance here very quickly on this Fed news bounce. And today, what do? We gap to the upside and go. And I think today it's not as important. So they were talking about the volume. We were talking about the volume today. Very light volume. I think the action, and then the action in the 10-year, I think this is more important. The 10-year selling off. And this has been my thesis all along, was, we had this run in November. This run leading up to November. Once rates topped, equities flew. So then we saw rates ramping up again, having that same kind of pattern. And now I'm wondering, is the announcement of the asset runoff, is that going to make rates top? Is the market, and that doesn't start until June 1st, but is the market going to forwardly look to that information as a reason to bid up? So looking at the SPY, it seems like we could test these all-time highs. A very similar chart in the Qs. The one thing I'm looking at in the Qs that I'm curious to see tomorrow is, like, we had this little downtrend line where we kind of sold off into it. So I'm definitely watching that as well. But here was the interesting thing I'm looking at is this reminds me a lot of the November gap, because again, the thesis is that being rates topping is going to cause the market to bid at least the highs. I don't know. See what we get tomorrow. See what we get the rest of the week. We go sideways the rest of the week. I think that'd be great. But if we look at this move, which was the November lows, the volume isn't anything special to the long side. It's consistently, like, look at these days here, and this was SPY 450 in November. What happened from, like, look at this volume down here. Nothing. But then look what happens. The market goes on a trend and it ignites and just persistently hits new highs. So I think to the upside, like, we don't need to see that. We don't need to see green volume days, the volume days on the green side higher than the red volume days. It's always going to be higher when we sell off. That's just panic in human nature. So I'm not as concerned about the market's volume. I love this dull action in indices. They say never short a dull market. Like, we got some dull action today. I loved it. It's great. We got a lot of great stuff working under the hood. Charts are moving really well. So I think on a broad sense, if we come back test this level and hold, or we have a few days of nothingness, that could really set up a lot of great charts. It's tough right now because we have this day. This was the day to get long. Now, looking back in hindsight, last Thursday, the day after the Fed. We gap and go Friday, tough to, take on risk and hold some. I took some names home, but definitely not maxed out long. Bought a couple things today, but again, it feels like I'm chasing a little bit because gap and go. But at the same time, when gaps hold, there's nothing more powerful in the market than that. All these gaps held, this gap right here, this is a gap and go. This is a gap and go. This gap ended up holding. And what it does is it powers the market even further. So just the fact that we gapped and held it today and went higher, that's huge information. So I mean, I'm taking that with everything with a grain of salt, taking it day by day. I would not be shocked to see us test these all-time highs. I don't think we'll blow through it. I think it'd be more, like you said, range bound. I think we come up here, test it, and then kind of who knows what happens from there. But I feel like, if rates stay down, VIX stays down, all this stuff, we're a stone's throw away from highs. Why not? And we're seeing great and things like change dramatically where it's like Microsoft is doing really well, Nvidia. So now Nvidia, look where it broke down from, this area, right? 840 was the breakdown area. Trading at 922 now. Things gonna make highs tomorrow, make new all-time highs tomorrow. So, it seems like semis are starting to come back. The things that drove us higher the first time seems like they're starting to come back. Micron is like probably the leading semi trader right now. How's this Dell doing? That's a great one too. I'm not shocked. These names are all doing well. So in my view, we're getting really positive action, and I'm wondering if the market just changed again to the upside. We went through the chop. Now we're back above the 50-day. So I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. That's kind of my thesis right now. I mean, we saw the gap up hold today. We can only take these things a day at a time from our standpoint, but everything is looking really well. Rates are down big, and things are moving well. So take it one day at a time, but things are looking good. What are your thoughts?
Give me 1 second. So again, very similar, like you mentioned last week, where like you didn't want to say bear market. It's just like we're kind of taking it day by day, week by week. And I feel like, exactly what led us into this week. It's exactly that, where, last week we were talking about, this like breakdown stage in the SPY. And again, that Thursday, Friday action, just, we were, it seemed like most of us were expecting, this breakdown stage to continue, and the market just broke right out of it. And now it seems like we're back in that, that basing stage. We're just basing between this, for now, it seems like 500 really is like the line in the sand in the short term. Like once we break below that, we'll probably see smaller price action. But I'm with you. I do think we retest these highs. I don't think we blow through it. Very in the same camp as you. I think this is just going to be a retest, and we're going to continue to consolidate in this range. And who knows, either this is a phenomenal flag for a breakout higher end of year, or it's just that topping pattern and we eventually roll over lower. So that's, but at least in the short term, we've seen, even from a lot of the sectors, really strong action out of the tech sector coming in today. Still technically in this, and we'll see tomorrow, like you mentioned with the Qs, if it breaks out of this little downtrend line that's been holding up. Again, financial names have looked very strong. We can see, this broader trend line that's been holding. It had this like much more steeper trend line here, but we're seeing these higher pivot lows. Give me a second, so it's easier to follow along. So we can see these, this low gets put in. We see a higher pivot low here. We can see, if we pull this line down, you can see these sellers holding this 100 area down. And through this, again, on tighter risk, we probably get a retest of this prior high in, the financial names. And we've been looking at a few of those names. I feel like we both had financial names on the newsletters this weekend. Even healthcare names, again, came back into this little base that's forming. We can see this little breakout, back in February. This is now creating resistance, is getting kind of tighter here. So we see a little push through some of the healthcare names. Again, consumer staples, very similar chart to, what the financials have been doing. Had a very steep trend line, it broke it, and now we're in that, kind of basing stage. Again, same thing with like the broader markets. I do feel we retest these highs in the staples, but I don't see this dramatic breakout. I think we're just, you test it, you push it, a point or two higher, comes back in and, trades more horizontally, and then eventually we get, that next push in either direction. And again, utilities, no shocker here. Again, when the market's a little skittish, we tend to see the breakout in utilities, so they're still kind of chugging along. Just while I'm here, I'll go over a couple of charts and then I'll pass it back to you, Shake, where you can go over if you have any good or bad trades or some top ideas. So we had a couple that went today. Again, keep an eye on this QLYS. It has earnings tomorrow. Potential opening range candidate through this base here, through this 175. So keeping a close eye on
Which
this
one was that? Sorry.
QLYS. This is a software name, and it reports, I believe, I'm not sure if it's pre-market or after the close tomorrow, but just keep an eye on this base here. Next, we got this Travelers. Kind of ticked this little level today. In this little gaffle area. Again, it's very tight little flag here. Again, earnings are out of the way in this name. So if you didn't get in it, if it pulls back in, keep an eye on this 215 area. NTAP, broke out, perfectly today. Couldn't really have asked for more through that 106 area. Looks really good. We got this Morgan Stanley, nice little base breakout forming here at this 95. We can see this level is going back to July. We've got 4 attempts here, pretty much closed right at the level. Right now the pivot low is 90, so it's a little extended in the short term. Maybe keep a little tighter versus 93, but nice little pattern there. Again, we mentioned before, financials have been pretty strong. We got another financial name. We have this FITB. Again, we can see this bigger base that's been forming since, pretty much end of 2022. I got into this one last week through that 37 area, through this little flag here. The next ad is up to this 38, which, pretty much closed at today. Again, earnings are out of the way. Had a little gap up, end of April. Again, I know you mentioned Dell in the shakedown, broke out today nicely. And then wrapping up the last few, we have this Ally Financial. Again, keep an eye on the financials, just, strong sector, some tight risk, keep an eye on this 40 area. And then last but not least, this ADSK, looking at this 220. It has earnings more end of the month, the 23rd. So looking for, a little bit more of a short-term swing if we eventually get a push up through this 220, in the short term, at least, to gap fill that 227 area. But we can see, going back even to, last summer, this area was, some significant resistance for quite some time before it went on, that really big run it had going into the new year. So a couple names keep on the radar. Again, a lot of the focus is definitely on those financial and those semiconductor names. But yeah, Shake, if you have any ideas, you want to go over some top ideas or good trades?
Yeah, I got you. Once again. Catch me right after the close, I don't have a lot of time to prepare over here. All right, so we got working. Man, so this coin was super annoying today. Kind of. So the 50, all right, this coin, huge, huge channel it's in here. Very strong name. We look at the weekly chart. It kind of looks like it's setting up for one of those runs again. So I bought through the inside day high today at 232.25. Nothing came of it. I got it out of this thing. It didn't look good. What the information was that 236 is the 50-day moving average right here, acting as big resistance. And we literally on a 5-minute chart, like you could see, sellers used it as just a liquidity trap. You see the volume ramping up into this 236, and then just failed it right there. So that was annoying today, but I'll still rebuy through 236 if it sets up. Another one just like that was this VKTX this morning. Shouldn't have been so aggressive. Should have given it more room. Shoulda, woulda, coulda. 3 best traders I know. So I was buying this one off the open. It came right back at me. So I was like, all right, I'll give it a chance to set up some more. Dips down to the 74 area. I see this during the day. I'm like, all right, good. I'm not missing out on too much. Take my eye off it, and it just check out this end of the day off this 75. Woo! So that thing looks like it's gonna break out through this $80. Man, I still want to be involved in that one. I was just too heavy this morning. Mistake on my end. What we got here? All right, you mentioned that Dell, huh? Man, this chart has $150 written all over it. These are the type of names I'm just hawking for an entry. We get a market pullback. I'm hawking this MU. I'm hawking that Dell. It seems like they really want to take these things to new highs. This Google looks amazing in the context of gapped up to insane highs on earnings. No way it could maintain that level, comes down, isn't even able to fill this gap to previous all-time highs. Buyers start coming in now up through this 168, 169 area. Looks like it has the next leg. You really got to buy that one though against these lows, which makes it tough. So keep a close eye on that one. I bought a little bit of this PSTG today. This is a name that's like I put in the category of like Dell MU, where it's like they don't want like the best entry in this was that day the S&P bottomed or didn't bottom, whatever, the last Thursday. So then today you have to buy kind of chasing it. That's what makes it's so tough right now after the market has the 2 big updates. So I bought a little bit because I feel like I really want to be in this one if it does have that breakout. I think that one still looks really good. Keeping an eye on this Powell here. It has some crazy numbers, crazy growth. Kind of broke the inside day today to the upside. Came all the way back. Kind of want to see this one base out. We'll see if we get that from the rest of the week there. And then here's a name I'm interested in. All right, this is A-Lab. This has earnings tomorrow, Tuesday, May 7th. Tomorrow, I'm not sure if it's after the close or the open. After the close. All right, so tomorrow after the close, this A-Lab has earnings. And this is just a beautiful BEA. Beautiful little cup it's got working on here. So we'll see what we get, but they have some big numbers, could set up a great trade to make an earnings run. And what do we love about recent IPOs is that once they take out highs, it's all price discovery. There's no resistance. So these things can turn into some serious runners. Like this DXYZ when it took out highs. Holy moly, I was just looking at this chart. What a sick chart. The thing is, Eric Flores called out this buy at 30. We just weren't paying. Sick chart. 30 to 100.
300% in 3 days. It's crazy.
Today, it just like sells off harder and harder and harder. I was just dying looking at that chart. So that's really it. I mean, I'm staring at the market pretty closely. I'm wondering if this is gonna set up in any way, any sideways action. It would be like 3 days of nothing happening would be like an amazing setup to get long for like a rip to highs. If we just kind of just grind each day, that makes it so difficult because just you kind of feel like you're chasing. So tricky times. You really gotta buy things against their true support levels and just kind of sit when the market's doing this. That was a mistake I made in that VKTX today. Kept a little too tight buying off the open. Should have kept my eye on it all day. Really set up off that 75. So I'm not mad at buying this and getting out right there. That's fine. I'm most mad at don't be looking outside. Ain't nothing going on.
I got people rolling by like my house real slow. I'm like,
what are you doing over there? Why? For what? Who is she?
No. It was like a bunch of little kids yelling.
So the mistake I made in this VKTX, I took my eye off it. I would have been willing to re-enter. I don't want to buy this 78 heavy and give it a 73. I don't think that's a great entry. If I get it and it works out, it's a tight risk entry, but I got to not use my full risk here. You got to leave some in the chamber and then be ready to buy the 75 against these 73 lows for like a good entry. That's like a great entry. When you're staring at the name, you're hawking it, really set up later in the day. So that's really it out of me. I think that one's still setting up for highs. Still going to keep an eye on it, regardless of what happened today. But overall, we'll see what we get. Take this thing day by day. We got a lot of earnings coming out this week. PLTR just announced they beat on earnings, they beat on revenue, they raised guidance, and the stock is down 5%. So we'll see if earnings start taking shape and can kind of controlling market direction. So far so good. Off last week's bounce. Do you have anything you want to add?
No, man, I think you covered it.
Yeah. You want to listen to shit. You're looking outside. All right. You guys want to like, subscribe, comment. Hey, you got some questions for us. But other than that, guys, we'll see you guys next week.
All right.
If you think you're going to get rich overnight trading, we're not for you. If you don't want to read daily or weekly to improve upon yourself, we're not for you. If you're not interested in saving weekly and building your accounts for the long term, we're not for you. If you're not looking to improve yourself daily, we're not for you. If you do want to build wealth for the long term, read weekly, save weekly, do all the right things for the long game, then we might be for you.